Hello and welcome to Under the Spotlight, data centers in our backyard. A town hall produced by WGTE Public Media. We're in the beautiful auditorium of Anthony Wayne High School to have an important discussion about and answer questions pertaining to data centers. My name is Jerry Anderson. We have a great crowd here in the auditorium. Thank you for being here tonight. Before we go any further, can I just say congratulations. We're in the home of champions. Just a couple of weeks ago, the girls' soccer team at Anthony Wayne won the state championship. Wait, there's more. The 2025 boys baseball team, state champions, best in the state. Good Lord. Girls volleyball, state championship game, Anthony Wayne. Girls golf, state tournament. We're in the home of champions. Of course, Anthony Wayne always ranks very high scholastically. And have you ever seen the marching generals of Anthony Wayne? They were actually outside rehearsing when I got here today, I think because they're going to be in the big Bowling Green Parade on Saturday, which I'm also emceeing, but they are legendary. They are, high school band royalty, having marched in every big parade from coast to coast and even overseas in Europe. So thank you, Anthony Wayne, for opening your championship doors to us today. You know, I've had the privilege of bringing people the news for the better part of 40 years, and I got to tell you, I've talked to a lot of people, been through a lot of things, but when I've told people that I was moderating this, that I agreed to moderate this, even my closest friends looked at me and said, "What were you thinking?" And I said, no, I want to do this. This is very much like the news business. We hear about issues, we explore them, we talk to people involved, we gather information, we write our stories, and we put that out to our viewers, hoping to inform and educate all of us. So to me, this was a natural fit, but there was something else. You see, I live in Bowling Green, on the north side of town, so anytime we come north, which is common a lot, we take State Route 25, four-lane divided highway. You know where I'm going with this? So I don't even have to tell you about turning off 582 to get to 75. And in recent months, I have been seeing, as I travel there, the construction of what appears to be a town, or a small city, actually, which we're going to get into all of that. But here's what troubles me, is when I hear people, acquaintances of mine, they're bright people, I know they're engaged, and they're asking me, so Jerry, what do you hear? What's going on up there? What? It's something about power or something? What's all that equipment doing up there? And I'm thinking to myself, wrong time to be asking those questions, because that project is a go, and it's a big one. And so I'm thinking, why didn't we know more? And there's a side of me that says maybe people didn't want you to know more. But you know what else? We also didn't have forums like this one. So I've had state development people who I think are data centers, who have said, we're so glad you're doing this up there because everybody needs to ask questions, demand answers, because these developments, they're not cookie cutouts. They're different, developed by different companies, different developers, different ways. Every question should be asked, every answer should be demanded, and that's what we want to do. So actually, at the end of the day, I am honored to be here today. At Issues, data centers. Being here in Anthony Wayne, that's a subject, isn't it? Why? Because of serious concerns being voiced by residents here about the possibility of a data center being placed here. But our program tonight is designed, it's not designed to litigate or debate any one data center, all right? Because data centers are everywhere. More are being proposed and built and fired up all the time. You're saying, I don't have one near me. Just wait, okay? So let's get going. Are these centers the keys to building massive community wealth, creating great jobs, funding our schools, our safety forces, and other services, enhancing the quality of our lives. And we could be on the receiving end of all of this largesse simply because of where we live. It's falling into our laps, people. Or are they environmentally suspicious sponges of our resources, our power, our water, which threaten property values, gobble up prime farmland, and at the end of the day create precious few ongoing long-term jobs? And also, we have to give up the store, don't we, in terms of incentives to get them here? And you know our electric and water bills are going up, right? They're going to skyrocket. I mean, they have to, right? Wow. Two very different views of the same thing. And there are probably some more views in between. As your moderator, I think I'm in the perfect position because I do not, at this point in time, say this is the answer or that is the answer. But what I do know, I think there are answers out there that will help us all understand the issues we face, and tonight our goal is to seek those answers. Answers to questions many of you, I have pages worth, that you have asked, and you've asked us to ask, and so we will tonight. Our goal is to inform, our goal is to educate, to maybe shed more light than heat on this issue, because it is one that's not going away. It's not going away. So to help me do that, we have assembled a panel of people we think can provide a lot of answers tonight. Some will also help us to know the best questions to ask and can provide strategy or even an outlet if you wanted challenge centers, all right, from wherever you live. I know we'll all be civil and respectful, and I thank each and every person in attendance tonight here at Anthony Wayne and everyone watching, streaming, wherever you are. Thank you for being here. All right, for starters, let's go easy. Is it data or data? Data or data? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. I researched this. Probably went through a data center, didn't it? My research. All right. Both are correct. Data and data. Oh, they also seem to agree the T is not hard. It's not data. It's data or data. Okay? So see, we have found a point of agreement. But the questions get tougher, guaranteed. For the purpose of our discussion, I know we have very knowledgeable people here, a lot of knowledgeable people here. I cannot, however, assume that everybody watching on the stream is up to speed. So we're going to do some basic stuff, okay? Bear with me. What's a data center? Anybody on the panel want to give that one a go? What's a data center? In terms that we can understand. I'll give you one. From IBM. A data center is a physical room, building, or facility that houses IT infrastructure for building, running, and delivering applications and services. It also stores and manages the data associated with those applications and services, and blah, 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 blah. I thought that was kind of wordy. But I got this one. They are giant warehouses full of computer servers, chips, and equipment that power AI and other technologies. I like that one. Succinct and to the point. They're new, right? How long have we had data centers? Anybody? Yeah. The concept of some of these hyperscalers we're going to talk about is newer, but data centers go back to the 1940s. U.S. military had one over at Penn, University of Pennsylvania, Ivy League school. The Electrical Numerical Integrator and Computer, completed in 1945, is an early example of a data center that required dedicated space to house its massive machines. They were big. They were truck-sized, the computers of those days. Over the years, as we all know, computers have become more efficient, requiring less physical space. In the 1990s, microcomputers came on the scene, drastically reducing the amount of space needed for IT operations. These microcomputers then began filling old mainframe computer rooms. They became known as servers, and the rooms became known as data centers. All right, so we're up to speed on data centers. So there are different kinds, different sizes. Yeah, you know that. There are enterprise data centers. These are private, just for a single organization, could be located on or off site. Co-location data centers. Now think of these as businesses. These are businesses as multi-tenants, all right, who rent space in a data center. They're great for companies who don't have the space for their own data center or an IT team dedicated to managing one. Edge micro data centers. These are small ones located near the people they serve. And then there are hyperscale data centers. Ding, ding, ding. That's the ones we're going to be talking about tonight. And by the way, a lot of the co-location centers are also now very mega in scope as they're built. The hyperscales are designed to support very large-scale IT infrastructure. According to Synergy Research Group, there are only about 700 hyperscale data centers in existence, 700 hyperscales, but that is doubled in just the last 5 years, and the projection is for that to grow even faster and larger. Amazon, Microsoft, Google account for more than half of all hyperscale data centers. So panelists, data centers, they're not new. It seems they are inevitable. Are data centers inevitable? Anybody? Open mic night.
So I think that they are part of, again, my name is Will Turner.
I was going to introduce you.
Okay.
Just give your answer, go.
You want me to jump in? I think that, so I'm a developer, right? I do data center development as a big part of my practice. I've been doing it for about 10 years now as a consultant and site selection, and I have my own development company now focused on data centers, among other advanced industrial uses. And I think that what we're undertaking right now is our next great infrastructure build out as a country. I think this is an extension of our legacy from the railroads to the power grid to the highway system to the internet and all the other achievements that we've had.
So you're saying they are inevitable?
I think that they're the future. Well, if we don't build them, others will build them. Okay. And the countries that do not build them, we will be dependent upon the ones that do. So,
by the way, that's Will Turner. I don't have to say the rest of his introduction. You did that for me. Thank you, Will, so very much. Right. He's from Virginia. By the way, Virginia is the hottest of the hotbeds of data centers, okay? Especially Northern Virginia, not that far from our nation's capital, all right? So we've established, by the way, some of you are saying, oh, I don't use data centers. I'm not a gamer. I don't do a lot of that AI stuff. You know what? We're already using data centers, right? We are. Anybody stream movies? Anybody do banking online? Anybody use social media? Anybody working from home? We're already using data centers. So we've established data centers not new, likely inevitable, largely because of, is it big tech with their billions of dollars saying, you know what, we've got all this money, let's just make a lot of people's lives miserable. Or are they simply satisfying our collective appetite? It's a fair question. If we're using it, somebody's got to build it. So what's the problem? Well, problems, plural, okay? And serious ones, say many people. Data centers require an immense amount of energy, don't they? Mark Fry is president of Palmer Energy. Energy consultant, he helps big power users, commercial, industrial, even public systems, get the power they need. And Mark, data centers need a lot, don't they? How much, if you can, in terms that even Jerry would understand?
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
data
really
centers
use an immense amount of electricity. So oil refinery might be 50 or 60 megawatts. Large data center, hyperscale data center might use 500 megawatts. And to give you a sense, the Davis-Besse facility generates about 930. Some of the hyperscale data centers that are under conversation now are in excess of 1,000 megawatts. So these are exceptionally large electric consuming facilities.
You're talking about data centers that consume more electricity than Davis-Besse, a nuclear power plant, produces.
Yes, in fact, in the case of, there's a contract that Microsoft, and this is public record, obviously, Microsoft cut a contract with the owner of a 3 Mile Island nuclear facility that had been shut down about 5 years ago to restart the facility just to feed a data center.
Yeah, remember at 3 Mile Island, not both, so they're going to fire up the remaining reactor at 3 Mile Island to create power. Again, for perspective, 500, again, it's megawatts?
Megawatts, yes.
Okay. 1 megawatt can power how many homes? Let's get, and I know that, I've been looking, the number varies. It depends how much power you use, Jared. But give me some numbers.
Well, the high-price consultant answer is it does depend. But an average house on a peak day uses about 1 kW, so a megawatt will serve 1,000 homes. But
1 megawatt, 1,000, and we're doing 500 megawatts. That's 500,000.
500,000 houses.
Let that sink in for a second. Population in Lucas County is We're over 400,000 in the county.
425,000.
That's population, so the amount of homes would be a third, a fourth of that?
About 2.3.
There you go, 500,000 homes. Where do we get it? Where's it coming from?
So the prior data centers, the ones that have already been constructed,
Yep.
most of those are connected to the grid. That's the interstate, the large high voltage transmission towers that you see. And the more recent ones that are under development and under consideration, basically it's BYOG, it's bring your own generation, or they're going to wait for a very long time to be interconnected to the grid. So they're going to bring their own generation facilities.
The one in Middleton Township, which is a Meta, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Parent, Facebook, okay, here we go. That got in under the wire, I'm told. That's going to be serviced by power off of the grid, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
All right. Who pays for all that energy?
So Meta would basically buy the electricity, just like you and your home would buy the electricity, or the Anthony Wayne High School buys electricity from a third-party supply source, and they're going to buy off the grid just like everybody else, presumably.
Okay. The electrical grid that this country has at this point in time cannot in any way satisfy the power demands of the next, 3 years, 5 years? Because of data centers and the amount of power consumption they are putting on the system.
If you connected everything, that would be an accurate statement, but the reality is that there's detailed load studies or studies that are done by all the electric utilities. When you go to try to interconnect, they evaluate whether or not the grid would be reliable under all circumstances. We don't want to be a third world country and lose electricity for hours at a time. So basically, they won't allow them to connect if they don't have confidence that the reliability of the electricity will be sufficient.
Yeah, let me just add to that as a developer. Our process involves paying for those load studies, right? So no, we pay for that out of pocket. If the project doesn't work, if the answer comes back wrong, that's $250,000 that's out of my pocket and out of my partner's. So we've got to have a lot of confidence that a project can proceed in order to do that. And we do that because it's important. And it often takes, this is one of the longest poles in the tent for our project, because it is very important for the utilities to be very thorough and meticulous in how they're doing these reviews. And I can tell you from Virginia, when power was getting constrained there, it was not the data centers that got prioritized. It was the what we call the mom and pops, right? It's the homeowners, it's the hospitals, it's the schools, it's the grocery stores. It is the most critical elements of our society and keeping everybody going. That's the way it is, that's the way it should be. Data centers have to prove that they are not going to burden the system. The detailed load study does that. That's the right way to do it.
Okay, the Department of Energy estimates that data center energy use will triple. That is ×3 by 2028, and we're fast approaching 2026. At that time, they would consume 12% of the total electrical usage in the country. And this idea, because you anticipated a question, we had great questions from folks. When power gets short, who gets the juice? And you say, no, the people, mom and pop, get it before the data center. What guarantees that? Is that in writing someplace?
If I could just real quick, just give you an example. I mean, there was a utility, can't disclose which one, not in this region, a couple years ago where I had a project, it was like 200 megawatt campus. This was about 2 or 3 years ago. And that utility said, hey, sorry, we've only got a gigawatt left. And so that's 1,000 megawatts, and we are not taking any more uses over 25 megawatts, and so you can't build here. And we, obviously we accepted that. I mean, because that's, at the end of the day, they have to protect the people who are most reliant on it in their day-to-day lives.
We have more power questions coming up, but you know what? We not only need power, we need water at the center. We need lots of it. Helena Vulzer is Senior Source Water Policy Manager for the Alliance for the Great Lakes. So if we're talking source, as in where's it coming from? We're talking quantity here, aren't we? And why do data centers need so much water?
Data centers need water both directly for cooling inside of the data center, and there's a variety of different cooling methods that they can use to cool down that data center. The computing power that they're processing inside of those servers gets those servers really hot, and so that's the direct water needs inside. But there's also indirect water needs at the power plant. So for the most part, we're powering these facilities with nuclear, coal, natural gas-fired power plants, which also requires water for cooling to cool the turbines that generate the power to power the data centers. So we have both direct and indirect water needs when it comes to data centers.
Do we have enough water to quench the thirst of these data centers?
That's a very good question. Every Great Lakes state is adding data centers throughout the region, and it very much depends. Site selection, for example, is very, very important when it comes to data centers as to what kind of water resource impact it may or may not have. And I recently authored a report kind of looking at this question, not only from data centers, but we have other, large water using industries throughout the Great Lakes region. We have agriculture, we have other high-tech industries like semiconductor chip manufacturing and quantum computing that also require large volumes of water. And so whether or not we have enough water to sustain this development is a very good question to be asking. And one way states are examining that is through demand studies. And so in Central Ohio, there's a study that was recently completed with ODNR, Ohio EPA, and the Central Ohio Planning Commission looking at this very question. What are the water demands and do we have enough water? And it does identify gaps at 2030, 2040, and 2050. Also looks at population growth. And so these kinds of studies are very important when we're deciding where to locate these data centers. Do we have the water resources available to do so? Now, when it comes to the Great Lakes, that's an area that we need more research on. We don't know what the cumulative effect of adding data centers in all of the Great Lakes states, relying on Great Lakes water, what that will exactly have. And so that's something that we need to look into further.
Helena Volger is going to be our water person on the panel tonight. Did you tell me, Helena, that there is no requirement that centers have to divulge their water usage?
Yeah, that's correct.
That seems like a problem.
I'll go a little further with that. So the vast majority of data centers connect to municipal water supplies, and when those municipalities have the capacity to serve those data centers, there is no water use reporting requirement applicable to the data center. Now, the water utility reports to the state that they have an idea of their water usage, but data centers, by and large, are not withdrawing their own water, and therefore aren't subject to registration and consumptive use permit requirements that we do have throughout the Great Lakes region, thanks in large part to something called the Great Lakes Compact, which first and foremost prohibits diversions of water out of the Great Lakes Basin with some limited exceptions for communities that straddle the basin line. So for that reason, we're not shipping water overseas, we're not piping it out west, but there are other parts of the compact that require the states to manage their Great Lakes water use. Only 1% of the Great Lakes are replenished every year through snowfall, rain, precipitation, and groundwater. And so it is a very finite resource, as the name of our report is, that needs careful management to ensure we have sustainable amounts of water available for everyone to use.
All right, we'll have more from you later on. I mentioned off the top of our program tonight the idea that data centers are massive economic drivers. At least their proponents say that they are, and I got to tell you, there's a lot of people working in Middleton Township. Let's get into that with Gary Thompson, Executive Vice President responsible for business development for the Regional Growth Partnership. No one can argue that building a mega facility, the hyperscale data center, creates construction jobs, and lots of them. Some will say, oh, those are just temporary. We'll get into some of that later on, trust me on that. But how many construction jobs? Give me the pay scale.
So at a hyperscale data center, and I define hyperscale data center anywhere from 200 to 1,000 acres. It's likely the sweet spot is 400 acres. You're likely going to build somewhere around 8 to 10 200,000 square foot buildings. You might build 400,000 square foot buildings. All the hyperscalers change their design as technology improves. So you can't look at one as the cookie and say, yep, that's every one of them is going to look like that. But there will be at peak demand many days 1,000 workers at that meta facility in Bowling Green. Those folks are going to make $60 to $75 an hour, and they're going to be building there for 5 to 10 years, depending on how the program unfolds at the hyperscaler. In economic development, we call that permanent jobs.
This is why I told you I wanted to get into that.
We'll get into that later.
These are just temporary. You're saying years worth.
Years worth. And the other thing, I had a Polish grandma that made me change her furnace filter every 30 days, whether I liked it or not. And most people I know don't do that. So my brother works in heating and air, so I do that as well.
Gotcha.
But go check just ask yourself, when was the last time you changed your furnace filter? Well, if you built a $1 billion facility and it had a maintenance schedule, you're going to adhere to that maintenance schedule. So every construction firm or maintenance firm in the area, if we land data centers, are going to hire more construction workers. There could be as many as 200 maintenance workers full-time working at these facilities, making sure the heating and cooling systems are working right, making sure the network computer systems are working right, making sure the security systems are working right, and they test all of those facilities and they maintain all those facilities on a regular basis. And for the kind of the direct jobs, we think there's somewhere between, in a 200,000 square foot building, you probably in round numbers have about 15 to 20 full-time jobs of people that are making $100,000 a year or more.
Let's underscore that again. We get this thing built out, they do it in phases, and it's going to be years.
Correct.
All right. There will be hundreds of outside contractors maintaining as we go on.
Correct.
In terms of jobs created by this project, full-time jobs at the center, you just said 15 to 20.
Per building.
How many buildings?
So if I do 8 buildings, I think my math works, it's like 60 to 100 jobs depending on the type of
Because that's
data
one of the
center you
things
build.
that we hear about all the time. We're not building a facility and creating Jeep jobs, that number, right? Just so we're clear on that. So economic development stuff, we're going to get into incentives. We're going to get into a lot of stuff. Gary Thompson's going to be our guy. I think we're going to take a break here, and because other people I want to introduce to you. We've also been talking to a couple of people who are big on this issue nationally. In Virginia, as I mentioned earlier, the hottest of the hotbed data center locations in our country, a middle school counselor has made the data center issue a cause. And that effort has now spread nationwide, or as Elena Schlossberg told me recently, no, Jerry, it's not nationwide, it's gone global because this is a global issue. Here is part of my chat with her.
Your goal, I believe, is to stop these hyperscalers, and I'm going to be asking if that's really even possible ahead. But let's go back. What first piqued your curiosity and then just got your goat about these big data centers?
So back in 2014, I was told that a massive transmission line, 120 feet tall, that needed a 120-foot easement of my property, was being proposed for an Amazon Web Services secretive data center campus that nobody knew about. And when I realized that not only did they want to exercise eminent domain over my property, my neighbor's property, and an untold number of other people's property, I realized that we were going to have to pay for Amazon's extension cord.
So it started with, wait a minute, we're paying the bill for people with deep pockets, but it's gone far beyond who's paying the bills.
Now, what we are experiencing is it's not just the transmission lines, it's the diesel generators that come with the data centers. It's the loud noise from the air conditioning units. It's the generation that they're triggering that's going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars. It's the impact on our water. It's the impact on our air. It's the impact on our quality of life that cannot be replaced.
And my sense is, as you talk to folks, Elena, that for most people, the biggest concerns about data centers go to access to resources, electrical power, fresh water.
Absolutely. So you can't have this kind of unprecedented energy demand and not experience not only the impacts to your home, but also to your electric bills. In Virginia, which is part of the PJM network, which Ohio is a part of as well, we are going to experience doubling, tripling, and quadrupling of our utility bills. And until the data center industry is held accountable for their infrastructure needs, that's going to continue.
Your group has something, it sounds like, amounting to a 12-step program for stopping these data centers. And I can't go through point by point, but can you give me some of the steps that have worked most effectively for your group to this point?
You have to build community around this issue. It can't just be about your home and your immediate neighborhood, because the threats are far and wide. The transmission lines will travel miles. The diesel fuel will be smelled, from miles around. You have gas turbines that are now turning up. The noise travels. So you have to build a community that understands this isn't just about your neighborhood. It's about the surrounding neighborhood. It's about your electricity bills. It's about a sense of justice and fairness. And you have to do it by talking to people. This is not a social media grassroots effort. You have to get out, you have to talk to your neighbors, you have to read the applications, you have to get educated.
What does life over the cliff look like?
So all you have to do is look at what's happening in Virginia. We are experiencing a transmission build out that will be impossible to meet in time for this industry. And so last year, or in 2024, we experienced a near grid collapse. What does that mean? That means that the lights will go out. We are experiencing more and more threats of what they call violations. When I say we're going over the cliff, what I mean is the lights are going to go off. The diesel generators are turning on. The gas turbines are turning on. So what happens to the communities when we're in a blackout and it's a hot red alert day? We can't run our air conditioning. We're struggling to pay our utility bills. This industry is building out an infrastructure that won't be able to be supported unless we pay for it. So financially, we're heading towards a cliff. Our air, the impacts to our air, our water, we are on a train that is taking us to a destination where one of us is going to lose, and it's going to be the people. And we need our elected leaders to step up.
All right, that's one view. One view. I want to get, hang on. Please, thank you. Will, I want to get to you because you're from Virginia. If I get to Virginia, are there huge diesel generators everywhere?
So a lot of the older data centers are using those, and the newer data centers are using them, right? We try to enclose those now.
Okay.
So what Virginia is getting tighter on is like air permitting. So that's what constrains the number of diesel generators that you can have in an area. And so as we go forward, we want to be able to be conscientious about making sure that any generation that we're doing is employing and embedded with technology that is scrubbing for nitrous oxides and accounting for carbon monoxide, converting that to carbon dioxide, as we're doing like on-site generation. So a couple of concerns. Yes, so Loudoun County, I started my career in Loudoun County. I served on the Loudoun County Economic Development Commission right as the data center boom was taking off. And while serving on that commission, I also was engaged in site selection and development consulting, specifically targeting data centers because that was the industry, and of course the industry that was growing there. The transmission issues, I think it's important to remember that a lot of what the costs come from are from the construction of the transmission infrastructure. And so I think that there is a right way to do data centers, and I think that is making sure that these things are sited near existing transmission infrastructure. That's what we do when we go out and find it, because the closer we are, if I can get within a half mile from transmission infrastructure that can, like a 345 kV line, well then it's a lot easier for me. It's a lot more, it's faster and it's cheaper. If the difference is I'm a half mile from transmission infrastructure versus 5 miles, well, it's a longer time frame, and I'm probably looking at 10x costs. Those costs get passed on to the ratepayer. So we in the data center community need to be responsible in terms of how we are siting these projects to make sure that we are being efficient. We also engage in offsetting payments, and I believe that on-site generation is the future to be a responsible stakeholder. So we're not just showing up saying, hey, I need a big load, right? I'm coming up with a solution. I want to do on-site generation, and that on-site generation needs to be embedded at the beginning with things called selective catalytic reduction technology, SCR, built into anything that we might be looking at for on-site natural gas generation. That converts the nitrous oxide into nitrogen and water vapor, as well as oxidation after treatment, which converts carbon monoxide into carbon dioxide. These things are important. We can achieve upwards to 95% reductions in those in order to make sure that we are being good neighbors from an air quality standpoint under the Clean Air Act. That also allows us to deploy generation infrastructure faster.
Having said all of that, and that was a lot, you guys going to have blackouts in Virginia this year, next year?
I live in Virginia.
Is it possible?
I have not experienced blackouts.
You have
and
not.
like
Are
I
you
said,
going to? She said we're going to. We're headed that way. I
we haven't seen that. And again, Dominion throttled back on the data centers. They told folks, hey, and a lot of data centers are upset about it because Dominion made promises, and Dominion didn't keep those promises. They said, look, you are not the most important power user here. And they may be the biggest power user, but they're not the most important. It's you guys. It's everybody. We're not going to go blacking out hospitals and homes and grocery stores. That's not the way to do it, and we should not do that. We should not expect that, and neither should you.
Okay. Matt Hireman is here, Deputy County Administrator of Lucas County, Director of Economic Development at the Board of Lucas County Commissioners. Sometimes the discussion and much of the heat, Matt, goes to developers and big tech companies forcing towns, townships, counties to sign non-disclosure agreements. I've been around economic development enough as a news guy, MC the Wood County Economic. I love that dinner. We've been doing it for 20 years. I understand it's as old as Adam in economic development circles to have non-disclosure agreements because company A doesn't want company B to know what their strategy is. But it also just breeds mistrust. Can you, from the government point of view, can you take us down that road? How do we address those non-disclosure agreements, some of which hang on for years?
Sure. So I can tell you that as it pertains to data centers or any of these projects, I nor anyone on our team nor anyone in this community that I'm aware of has signed non-disclosure agreements.
You've not signed any?
No.
Good to hear.
There's no one in this community that I know has signed any of those. That is a majority driven by the fact that there are not projects that are coming, because the first steps are to work with the community to make sure that we have the appropriate zoning and protections in place ahead of time.
You anticipated where I was going, Mr. Hireman, because I want
Jerry,
you
can I
to...
just say one thing about that? So you made a good point about company A, company B. The other reason there are non-disclosure agreements, especially if zoning changes or other public things are involved in a project. And Matt, how many people work for a company or own your own company? Would you want your brand to go through a process like that? They don't want their brand on the headline, let's just pick a name, Google. Google, citizens oppose Google. That cannot happen for that company brand.
Gotcha.
It can say, the headline can say, citizens oppose data center. That doesn't bother Google one bit. But it's very problematic for their business.
If they're associated, okay.
So that's another very
Thank you for making that
corporate
point.
reason for non-disclosure agreements.
Matt, I wanted to get you back into, because you mentioned zoning. I know enough to be dangerous, so I need some help. Explain the zoning piece. If a local governing body refuses to rezone an area making a data center's use then incompatible, that's it, isn't it? It seems to me there's your easy out. Get the local zoning people to say no. Doesn't work that way.
Well, it's not quite that simple. So
Yep.
zoning is a tool that we all utilize to protect our community, our environment, the workers that work on our projects. You utilize that to make sure that we get the best community outcome. But at the end of the day, there is also private property rights that have to be balanced with that. So a lot of people talk about moratoriums and those kind of things, and I would say that from a community perspective, the best thing we can do, whether it's data centers or any other project, is to work together with our local officials. They set zoning and identify the things that we want to do to protect our neighbors in certain ways. So whether that is setbacks, which is how far off property lines things need to be, whether that's buffers for sound or for visual inspection of those things, you want to make sure that you have the appropriate things. So I think the best thing we as community, and it is part of what economic development does, is we work with our local communities to make sure that we are balancing quality of life with wealth creation, because you need both of those things. If you don't do both of those things, you don't end up with the ultimate outcome you want. And so at the end of the day, economic development is focused on working on zoning to make sure we're protecting that, and I would encourage all residents to work with their local communities on that as well.
And I also, with Matt's presence here, sometimes we say, well, nobody listens to us. The County of Lucas wanted us to have this conversation. I think it's good that we have the conversation.
Can I go first? Sure. So I would argue your first statement is right. If the zoning doesn't exist, that is the end of the story. No company wants to fight their way into a community. They want to be welcomed. And it's also speed to market.
Hang on. I'm going to, do you know Saline Township, Michigan?
I do.
Saline Township settles with data center developer, quote, lesser of two evils. The board up there turned down a zoning change for a data center. The vote was 4-1. The board was sued. And as part of a settlement, now they did reach a settlement. They're going to get the data center in. They did get a lot of concessions out of there, creating wetlands, open space, funding for farmland preservation, a community investment fund, $8 million for area fire services. But the idea, because I had heard that before, they don't want to be where they're not wanted. Well, they wanted to be where they're not wanted and filed suit to get there. So I'm struggling with that.
Well, there's maybe exceptions to every rule.
Say again?
And at the RGP, and certainly I think at Lucas County and any other group here in Northwest Ohio, we would not work with a company and try to insert them into a community that the community did not want them.
Good.
That just would not, we would walk away from that.
Okay. I want to get in. Karen Wynn is here, brings a really unique perspective, and Mark is here. We have people who are living it out there on the front line, so stay with me. Karen Wynn can tell us something about property and data center. You see, Karen's family owns good chunks of farmland in Richfield Township going back 6 generations, Karen? How about that? And apparently it's farmland that developers may have had their eye on, because right about Memorial Day, Karen gets a card or a letter, something, and it says something about Central Avenue overlay. We're going out Central Avenue 295, right, to Richfield Township. And you tell me you had to look and look again and look really closely to say it said something about zoning and advanced manufacturing, and all of a sudden that raised your eyebrows. Tell me about that experience.
Well, and actually, could have been easily missed. It was Memorial Day weekend.
Oh.
I was out working. Farmers are out in the fields. I don't know if this was intentional, but the hearing was on Wednesday. I got the letter on Friday. Probably wouldn't have looked at it. My sister had called and I opened it up. Said Central Avenue overlay. Not, a big deal, I thought. I was on the land use plan at one time. I thought, well, maybe they were talking about expanding Central Avenue. No mention of advanced manufacturing.
Right.
So I had to go through all the fine print, and it was buried in a paragraph. And it had a description of the area. I looked at the map. It had Central Avenue overlay clearly displayed, but it did not have the data center advanced manufacturing. And that was 1 square mile. That was our farm, our cousin's farm, another relative's farm. We're the primary farm owners. We get no notification of it. The only reason that I got that letter is that part of one of our fields touched Central Avenue, and that's the only reason. The remaining, I could go through. My mother lives there. My sister. So it's really the whole family.
Brother built a house out there, didn't he? Is your mom still out there?
Mom's still out there. Going to be 90.
Good.
But
Okay.
But that was our dilemma. You would have never found that. Completely not transparent, misleading.
Within you being you, started asking questions, and people were feeding back to you that they were getting nibbles on their property. Am I close?
You're very close. Actually, we were offered, but it's just like we'll give you $200,000 an acre, right?
Stop. You heard it right. $200,000 per acre. Hang on. If Uncle Bob liked Jerry and gave me 10 acres, Jerry's really feeling good. But $200,000. Now in Wood County, help me out here, that was more $40,000 to $60,000 per acre on Middleton Township.
That's correct.
Okay.
And there's reasons for those differences.
Gotcha. Okay, get back over to you. 200,000. Karen, you're home free. This is generational wealth. You kids, nephews, nieces, for years to come. Go.
Right. Well, number one, I said, would you put it in writing? No. And that's just they're amassing land so that they can raise the flag and say, look over here. We've got the spot. You know that, right? When you amass land.
I put it in writing.
I would hope so.
We're behaving. Come on. Go.
But yes, so when we sat and as a family, we sat down and we said, we've been 6 generations, all of us live here. What's your take on it? Is it worth it to take that money? Yes, we'll be very wealthy and we'll be sitting on a beach somewhere, right?
Oh, you'd own the island.
Or an island. But then we had to think about how it will change our community.
Yeah.
And agriculture is a big part of our community. You know, Richfield is a band of very rich soil. It's like, you know, it's one of the top-rated soils. We take that out of production, and it's called Richfield for that reason.
Yeah.
So why are we targeting this farm-rich ground? We felt an obligation. We've always been good stewards, and we felt an obligation that we need to keep this. And our nieces, nephews, everyone, we said we could be pretty well off, and what do you think? And they said, you know what? I don't want to move away from my family because that's worth more than you could ever put a price on. We care about our neighbors. We don't want to disrupt their lives. They've been our neighbors our whole life. We have very good community, and we want to maintain that. So we said, what is the value of that? And that's why, as a group, we voted and said no.
There you go. Karen Wynn. Mark. Here's the thing, too, on that. And I'm going to respect everything you just said. But then we're also going down the road where we can tell, and I say farmers because they have the big chunks of land, okay? But it could be anybody else. So we're going to tell our farmers, no, you can't sell your land. That's a tough question. I think it's a tough question. I had a real estate license once, and included in ownership of real estate is the so-called, they called it, a bundle of rights. A bundle of rights, and one was the right to negotiate the sale of your property. So if somebody, thank goodness Karen thought that her family felt the way they did, but if somebody else says, $20 million, I owe it to my kids, grandkids, they'll be taken care of forever. Do we take that decision away from them? I'm not answering. I'm asking that question. I think it's a tough one. I want to get Mark Patton in here. He's been so patient, and he's here as my guest. I asked him to be here. I want him here because Mark is living almost every facet of this issue. He's also part of a large group of people who've banded together to get alerts, to ask questions, to demand answers. More and more, we are seeing groups of activists who likely never envisioned themselves in this role, attempting to stop and often slowing down or at least getting concessions on so many of the issues we've been discussing tonight. So, Mark, you live a rural lifestyle.
Okay, I'd like to start with, I love the no data signs. I've got 2 of them in my yard, and all my neighbors have them. We could get this crowd going real easy.
Patton playing to the crowd. I love it, Mark. Well, you're living right there. You're across the street. You're next to. And if that development comes south, as it appears it's going to, let me ask you this. You have that great country lifestyle. Mark, how's your house value?
What's that?
How's your house? What's the value of your house? Do you have any ideas?
Well, it's worth a lot, about half of what it was 3 years ago. So that's the dilemma. We live in a community of that's kind of in a housing development somewhat. We live in a modest home, but most of the houses are $750,000 to $1 million. And these homes were built early 90s, and now we have a data center a mile from us, and there's a possibility of one. The next phase would be right up in our backyard. We think that we'll possibly have to sell our homes to the people, the developers, and that'll be the only buyer. And it's a sickening thing. If there was 775 acres on the current square mile that the current data center is being built, I understand there's going to be 3 of them. Nobody's told us that. Nobody will tell us that. I've heard that from one of the guys working there. It was a pipe fitter told me that. Ask township trustees, they won't tell you anything. We've been to several meetings, and all we do is agitate them. So it's a sad situation, and I drove past, and I shared this with Jerry, and I drove past the current construction, and the electrical grid on the north end of the property is just overwhelming. And doesn't fit our community, doesn't fit. It's just like you came out here in the middle of cornfield and plopped this thing out here. Shouldn't be there. And it's a black eye to our commissioners, it's a black eye to our township trustees. Our township is now the armpit of Wood County.
Mark, I want to talk about the group that you're working with. And I know you mentioned, you alluded to this, that quality of life is among the big issues that you guys are talking about. You have friends, I don't know their name, or we're not going to put their name out there. You say they may have a 7-figure home not down the street from you. So now at nights, what's their view?
Right, they're here tonight. They have a beautiful home. We were over there a few nights ago, and I couldn't believe the lights. We have zoning to control those lights, but nobody controls the zoning. Zoning means nothing. It's a sad situation. Brand new home next to me. Guy's got over $1.5 million invested. He's just had his home appraised. They're thinking about moving. Well, how are you going to move? Who's going to buy it? You know, I wouldn't want to move there. And the people that are here, who would want to live next to a data center? Even the guys that are working. I understand jobs, and I understand employment, and I understand money for the schools, but there's a place to put these things, and it's not in Wood County on 582.
Mark, you hit me with something that got my attention. This is brand new out of left field to me, and then I talked with a big economic developer out of Columbus who also hit on this issue. You've been observing, and I'm talking about the way the buildings on campus are constructed. You say lots and lots of concrete, and your sense is, because these centers could well be terror targets.
Absolutely. I mean,
And this gentleman in Columbus brought up that he's in favor of data centers as a national security issue. He says the military has information on them, all right? He also points to things like medical records. All of our financial stuff is out there. And if somebody wanted to disrupt this society, where would they go? Who would they hit? And you're living across the street.
well, the thing is kind of funny. We're seeing drones fly over our house at night. So we got that going, you know. But there's different theories about that. There's about 20 acres of wooded property between us and the current construction. We've seen eagles trying to nest back there. Somebody believes that they may be trying to flush the birds out so they don't nest, and all the other wildlife that's in there. It's hard to say. Who knows? I mean, you can speculate all you want, but I don't like at 10:30 at night seeing a drone flying over my house and wonder who or what, you know.
We have hit on so many issues tonight, and I'd still want to come back to. For example, see, this is light reading, 98 pages, full color, and this is Economic Impact Study of Data Centers in Ohio, prepared for the Ohio Chamber of Commerce Research Foundation. I spent time reading through that. Folks, we also have to remember, on the other side of this, in less than a decade, Ohio has become one of North America's leading data center markets, attracting over $40 billion in private capital. That's not tax dollars, private capital. Earning the title Silicon Heartland. They have Silicon Valley out there. 2024, 95,000 jobs supported across, this is construction and operations and supply chains. Net fiscal gain of $2.7 billion. Now that's 2017 to 2024. And we're going to be getting into incentives in our next segment. But again, this is the information that every $1 of incentive yields $2.10 in tax revenue. I'm just saying that we have to talk about that side as well. And then this one got my attention because I have family who were farmers. We all know in the Toledo area that Ohio has a lot of automotive operations. The scale of data centers will rival Ohio's automotive and agricultural sectors. A lot of jobs, a lot of money, and yet we're wrestling with, and it seems to me, unless you think we're just going to never have data centers, And there's a lot of reasons that, of course, that is not going to happen because, as we've already discussed, we're already using them. We wouldn't know society as it is if we didn't have them. So Jerry, ever the moderator, is asking, by raising these issues, is there this answer that we can somehow grow jobs, Ohio isn't necessarily, anybody been reading the Blade editorials? Yeah, I hear you. Okay. And just for those who work at the Blade, there were 4 people who responded to that, but just kidding. But they do raise the issue that we have a declining population, therefore resources. Here comes, that's what I'm wrestling with, you guys. Go.
Okay. So it really is up to the community. The reason that data center is in 582 is because there's a 345 transmission line running through there. Data centers can't go everywhere. So if you think we're going to cover the earth or cover Northwest Ohio with data centers, we can't. They have to go where they can get connected to 345 lines, where they can get access to the Nexus pipeline perhaps, or the Rover pipeline. They need workers and construction talent. They need freeway access to get in and out of community. Funny story about drones. I was building a pool the other day. I live in Oregon, Ohio, and it's a somewhat rural area. My neighbor's flying the drone over my house. So drones fly over, everywhere. I don't know that that's a problem because of a data center. There's a lot of problems that occur that are in the world. But the society and the economy is changing, right? We are a manufacturing-based economy. And one of the reasons at the RGP we think data centers are important is because all of the manufacturers are putting AI into their process. And they need the computation power to do that. So if we don't have data centers, and I think, this room in particular, you think of this big building, this ugly eyesore, these things. I think of it as infrastructure, like a sewer pipe, like an electric line, like a workforce talent program. Manufacturers need these data centers, or we're going to lose our manufacturing base. And dare I say, AI is going into agriculture as well. There's driverless tractors. Your seed companies are using that. They're telling farmers when to water, when not to water. All those kinds of things are being developed through AI. So we need to find the balance where we can put them. And we have a lot of places in Northwest Ohio where we have the attributes. The city of Toledo has 70 million gallons of excess water capacity and sewer capacity every day.
Please, folks, come on. We've been so good tonight. Let's listen, please.
So if you don't want a data center, then you're not going to get one, is my opinion, okay? However, that doesn't mean the neighboring community isn't going to take one, because they come with a lot of benefits, and if we have the attributes to do that, and the community wants it, and it provides, I'm just going to jump to incentives. We shouldn't give incentives to data centers. We're not for that. There's some complications and complex issues, maybe why people might do it. It's to create a big pot of money that the community can share. Otherwise, it all goes to one source. So if a data center can provide the kind of revenue to help you build parks, to build infrastructure, to build schools, to build those kinds of things, then communities are going to think about this, and it's a community decision.
Okay. You guys have a great school district here. Maybe you don't need any money. No, hang on. Let me ask you. My daughters are just absolutely beautiful because they look like my wife, not me. Both graduated Otsego High School. Because of this project in Middleton Township, Otsego High School, located in Tontogany, which is just fun to say, and the adjacent Eastwood School District getting $1 million per year. It's $1 million per school district.
I'm not sure about Otsego. I know the Eastwood schools will get nearly $1 million each year.
I just heard that. That's a great question. The when of all of this. When they say they're going to do that, is that here's the check? Or is this 10 years down the road? Because there's going to be people in this group who are thinking they may not be here in 10 years. Am I close? thought so. Go.
So the when would be when the buildings are, there's two choices really. When the buildings are constructed and go on the tax rolls, so all of you get your property tax bill, you're paying it through your mortgage. You know, I like to think the government makes those bills complicated on purpose. You pay them in arrears, you know, there's millage, it's by thousandths, not by percent. It's all those issues, right? But all those are agreed upon. But if a community's smart, they're going to work that deal and get things in advance, and they're going to get things ahead of time. Let me give you an example. If a manufacturer comes to town, a manufacturer normally comes to town and says, I want a free site, I want a 100% tax abatement, I want this, I want you to pay for the
They're
infrastructure.
famous for that.
Yeah. I like to say in many cases they like to rape a community. It's just that simple. But the community is so hungry for the payroll tax revenue, they go along with it, right? In this case, data centers are the only industry that I've worked with in economic development that come to a community when they come and they say, what do we need to do? Or the community can say to the data center, if you want to come here, you need to go on that spot because we've zoned that accordingly for a data center and it's away from everything. We want a payment in lieu of taxes of this amount. We might need a fire truck. We might need these things, and we want that agreement to go ongoing for a long time.
I can tell you at the Meta development, all right, the data center, Northwest Water and Sewer sits right there on 582, Jerry Greiner, tip of the hat. They provided water to me when I lived in Middleton Township, ran water lines out. We were using water out of our pond. There was no fresh water out there. There's a big water tower going up right along 582. And people say, well, that's just Meta doing that. Well, on the side of it, it says Northwest Water. That's a case in point you should cite because who paid for that?
Meta paid for that. They also paid for the water and sewer to go under I-75.
All right. Here we're going to do. Here in Ohio, it's the central part of our state that to date has seen the most activity in terms of data centers. It's that corridor from Columbus up to Licking County that first saw the development of these data centers starting over a decade ago. Kenny McDonald has watched it all from a very interesting perch as the longtime head of One Columbus, the economic development arm there. Think of our regional growth partnership. While he certainly believes in the benefits of data centers, I've found it interesting in talking with him that he also thinks the reaction to these centers is understandable. He also says that we need to be asking questions and demanding answers. He's who I was referring to earlier. He also admits, his words, not mine, data centers are not a good fit for every community. Mr. McDonald recently started his own consulting company specializing in site selection for businesses along with other facets of economic development. I talked with him recently. Here's part of that chat.
Mr. McDonald, thank you for joining us. Mr. McDonald, why are people so passionate about data centers?
First of all, thank you for having me, but I actually think the reaction is very rational. It's a time of an incredible change. And while we've had data centers for decades, hosting what we have on our phones and the pictures we used to take, that's growing exponentially. And with the creation of AI and the new technologies, the new servers stuff, the last 3 or 4 years has been even more change on top of that.
What issues, what large issues bother you the most that are being passed off as fact, and you're shouting in social media, wait, it's just not true?
Well, there's a few things. Number one is that data centers and the tech companies are doing this in a silo. Honestly, this is you and I using AI to do our everyday jobs. It is our military, it's our government, it's our hospitals and healthcare providers, and almost every corporate entity in the country or the world launching AI initiatives and using technology to actually do things faster and in some cases way better. Where that physically happens is in these data centers. Because of cybersecurity risks and things like that, these have to be within the boundaries of the United States, which I think is a huge benefit to us. Some of the misinformation is that they all use the same amount of water, or they all use the same amount of energy, and they all have the same approach. That's not true. There's lots of different approaches. There's lots of different entities. They approach projects differently. These aren't a fit for every community in the country. but it's been a great benefit for us here in Central Ohio as we've dipped our toe into water. We're in a brand new economy that's being built underneath our feet every day. Data centers are critical infrastructure that is the backbone of everything that we're talking about that we do every day. 100% we are in a race with China that we have to win. And these facilities that are being built have to be backed up by a secure energy grid. We have to make big investments there, which is part of the reason maybe some of your bills are going up. That we haven't invested in decades and decades and decades. Shame on us for that. And then we're causing ourselves to look at where we're generating electricity, how we're generating electricity, and how we're building a more resilient, safe, and reliable and cost-effective infrastructure to compete with China. I would think it's rational and good that we're getting together to debate how to do this smartly, but also to encourage you to forge ahead and look at the possibilities and all the good that could come out of the developments in the infrastructure that these data centers are bringing to Ohio.
You can see why I wanted Kenny McDonald on our program here tonight. A lot of your questions coming up. Karen, you've been waiting patiently. Go.
I've been waiting. Yes, I think that a lot of people are concerned about site selection and their part in determining site selection. A big question that always comes up is, why aren't we putting these in brownfields or industrial parks? That's a big question. When I look at the site plan and the noise buffers and they show the trees, those data centers will be obsolete before those trees ever get up to.
Okay, I do want, hang on a second.
But
I want to get, now, let's get this out there a little bit. Because Will has an answer, I believe, on the lifespan of data centers. We don't know the ultimate, I mean, the one in Columbus that started 10 years ago, it's still operating. What is the lifespan of a hyperscale data center?
So we still have facilities in Loudoun County that are operating. They're over 20 years old.
20 years old.
And again, they still have 20 to 40-year useful lives. Technology changes quickly. Typically, just like any building, right, if it is reaching an age of obsolescence for its use, you can repurpose it. Sometimes in the data center space, you will take buildings that were doing cloud computing and you're moving towards disaster recovery, backup, as you're moving, the more specialized loads and work into newer data centers. I do want to, we're talking about site selection though. That's a big point of concern. Am I right? Yeah. So you had the right answer. I love the way you approached your property. Somebody offered you money, you sat down with your family, you talked about it, and you told them no. If you don't want to sell your land to me or any other data center developer, you don't have to. You have property rights. So do the people who buy land that's zoned industrial and that is intended for this use. When I do site selection, again, I keep coming back, there's a right way to do this. I look for industrial parks. I want to be near industrial parks. If I can find industrial zoning that's in place, that's where I'll go. And if I see a vision for a property that it can be a data center and I want to rezone it, that's when you get engaged. Come and talk. And if I'm offering something, look, I'm a man, if I'm going to say something to you, I'm going to put it in writing. That's what I said to you here. If I'm going to make an offer, you're going to get it in writing. We're going to talk about it. That offer's going to be contingent upon rezoning because it means nothing to me to buy that land if I can't build a data center or none of my customers can build it on it. And so that's very important. And that's the same thing. We go through a process. There's a rezoning application that I will submit. And then you show up, you talk to your city council members, you talk to your whoever, trustees, whoever's in charge of that.
Yeah.
We have that conversation. I think it's fantastic that you people are coming out here and learning about this. A lot of communities are not educating themselves on this thing, and therefore they're not in a position to make sure that the data center developer does things the right way, that the data center developer is bringing technology. Water is an example people get concerned about. When you look up data centers and water, you're getting information about old technology that is using I call it open tap, right? So we had a lot of learning in Loudoun County. There's a lot of frustration about that, using these old water guzzlers, I called them, right? Using enormous amounts of water. Now, data centers didn't set out to say, I'm just going to suck down every water in the world. This is a conscientious industry. They care about their impact, and they really want to make sure that they are being good stakeholders of the land and the water. There's been tremendous advances in technology for cooling a data center. We call closed-loop systems. This is a system in which you top it off like a swimming pool, and then the the pipe goes down to the servers, even getting down to the chip now, and they transfer the heat through liquid. And why is that important? Well, water is 800 times denser than air. Air can only hold so much heat, and it's more efficient. It's quieter as well, because a lot of the old data centers, the biggest causes of noise were the generators and the evaporative coolers on top. I mean, you had this drip, drip, drip sound. With closed-loop cooling systems, it goes to a different section of the data center. You know, you blow a fan onto the water, it cools it off, and it stays in the loop. And you're not using a lot of water. I mean, our projects, we're scoping for only 20,000 to 30,000 gallons of water per day, not hundreds of thousands of waters like these open tap systems do. And that's very important. You probably get about 5% loss in evaporation. You top it off, and you are able to conserve your water. If you're a community and you care about your water, show up and ask the developer, what sort of cooling system are you employing? Is it closed loop?
I want to be clear on the water system because we are getting several questions about that. What chemicals are used in the cooling process and what are their potential impacts on local soil, air, and groundwater? Are you saying in closed loop there are no other chemicals being used?
No, you're using water and you're using a coolant, use like glycol or something like that. It's contained in the loop. You have certified water technicians that go in and maintain the system. I want everybody to understand if there's a breakdown in that cooling system, a leak or anything, that's a big problem on site, but it's also a big problem economically for the data center because if that cooling breaks down those servers, that's an enormous capital investment. Oftentimes the servers are more expensive than a lot of the building systems that are cooling them. And so those data centers are to make sure those things are built. That's why you need to have good union labor building it to make sure that these things are...
Hey, you led me right into my next question.
No,
Will the developer work directly with the local building trades to get the project under a project labor agreement? Again, we're not going to have a specific one in mind, but is that something that we should hold the feet to the fire on, and is that something that developers will do?
I think it's a matter of necessity for them to do it. I mean, these are extremely complex buildings. You want the best of the best doing that, and the unions are the ones that have the training, and they are able to bring in apprentices. This is one of our most important infrastructure build-outs. I mean, we're talking about competition geopolitically. In the 20th century, we had to have industrial capacity to arm our troops to be able to defend this country. In the 21st century, we need to also add in computing infrastructure. That needs to be built right, and union labor builds it right. And I think that if you're a young person, you're wanting to participate in this industry, in this big growth infrastructure build out of our age, the best place you can do is contact your local trades union and figure out what kind of work. They know just as well as anybody the kind of work that needs to be done.
Everybody wants to know this one. The centers are known for using... There we are. There's our guys. Thank you for being here, guys. The centers are known for using an excessive amount of water and electric. How will this affect our utility rates? And that's such a basic one that we care about, but I apologize. We haven't gotten to a number, or it's just something we can expect.
So the question is a matter of magnitude and degree. So it was mentioned earlier that if you don't put one in this area, one's going to go somewhere else. The way the grid works is if you build a data center in West Virginia, or you build a data center in Western Pennsylvania, or you build a data center in Northwest Ohio, your electric utility bills are going to go higher because that's the way the grid works. You put it next door, you put it 5 miles away, you put 105 miles away, that still affects the amount of natural gas that's being consumed. So you're going to get the lemon, but if you don't build the data center in the general community, not specifically for this one community necessarily, but the general community, you don't get the sugar.
Well, what does experience tell us? You live in Virginia. What have your utilities? I got one for you. According to Bloomberg, this is wholesale, electricity prices are up 267% in the last 5 years in areas near data centers. That's just Bloomberg.
Well, and I think that's an accurate number, but you need to remember, what were we experiencing 5 years ago? COVID. Price of electricity was in the tank because the entire economy was by and large shut down. So I think that's a false pretense.
Gotcha.
So, Jerry, let's change the rules a little bit.
Hang on, Gary, go.
So everybody's thinking about this from your current paradigm. Mark, let me ask you a question. Okay. If we have a private developer build a behind-the-meter power plant hooked to the Nexus pipeline running on clean natural gas that powers the data center, how much is that going to affect my electric bill?
None.
In Ohio, in Northwest Ohio, we have the people that will develop power plants, use natural gas. They have the capital to do it. They don't need taxpayer dollars. They just need locations and communities that want investment. And we can power these data centers with behind-the-meter power that doesn't affect the grid. In fact, they're likely going to build backup generation or overbuild so that on hot peak days, they could send power to the grids to avoid brownouts and blackouts. This is one of the things that I think we just need to kind of lay the cards out. Northwest Ohio is perfectly suited to do this right without many of these issues and problems that happen in Virginia, Texas, and other places.
But one of the questions I have, though, that's about, and I made a note on this earlier, we had a reference to it on the video. One of our panelists talked about, we're going to have to build more infrastructure, right?
No question.
Okay. Who bears the cost of that? Because if the billion-dollar companies are the ones that are requiring the build-out, why are we paying for it?
So I'll talk about Central Ohio. Jerry, you brought up Central Ohio a little while ago. In Central Ohio, the American Electric Power, which is the big electric utility in Central Ohio, they basically had so many data center requests, when they tapped out, they said no mas.
Done.
We can't take any more. They couldn't connect as many applications to the loads as the transmission grid was not strong enough and capable enough. And when they said that, one of the other things they went to is they went to the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio and said, listen, we want to create an entire data center tariff that requires the data center companies to show up with a long-term commitment, economic commitment to create and pay for the infrastructure, for the transmission infrastructure, to make sure that they're not going to stand up a facility and 5 years later walk away and leave us standing with the bill. That was approved by the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. It went through a regulatory process. That is part of the protections that is built into the regulatory structure in the state of Ohio. I fully expect that you're going to see the same thing happen in First Energy Footprint and other electric utilities in the state of Ohio. Those types of infrastructure requests are going to come through.
Jerry, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Middleton Township, we needed water and sewer infrastructure. Who paid for it? You know the answer.
Who paid for it?
Meta.
I know they did. Okay. We're getting all these questions in up here, so we're going to go rapid fire. Estimated influx of dollars that will be directly put back into the local economy. Well, that's going to depend on the situation, but I do want to know, is that in the agreement? Is it spelled, and can we see all of that? And do we also have access to all of the studies on environmental impact of these facilities that we as the public should be able to see?
Can I address the question about dollars to the
Go.
community? So what the community needs to do together is ensure that they sign agreements for what's called payment in lieu of taxes or minimum service agreements that clearly delineate where that goes. And the answer to the question is, are those public? The answer is yes, they are. And one of the most important things that we can do as a community as these things start to happen, whether it's this project or any other project, just like zoning, is to make sure we engage that process. And one of the things that can happen, it sounds a lot of times like what people think is going to happen with data centers is that they're going to get this huge property tax abatement and not have to pay taxes. A payment in lieu of taxes is a more direct form of payment. So right now, if you look at your property tax duplicate, look at where it's going. It's going to a variety of sources.
Right. Yeah.
What you can do when you do a payment in lieu of taxes is you can target that more locally to community to ensure that the community is protected and provided more money. So if you're talking about $10 million in an annual payment, you can target that to ensure that the neighbors are the ones that benefit. They are the ones that get the dog parks. They are the ones that get the fire services. They are the ones that get the road infrastructure support. So that's important. It's an important piece that I think we need to be focused on as a community. As Will has pointed out, you have to work together to find that solution.
Okay. Both from Mark and Karen's point of view, you guys are here as residents. If you have questions that you want to take back to your group, you can ask those as well. I have one right here. This is different. I like it. I have 3 small children. And some of the property in Lucas County that we're talking about is within 2 miles of my home. What long-term health effects are there when living in such close proximity to these centers? Another person had submitted a question. I wouldn't have thought of this. Ask the question, I have a pacemaker and don't feel the same when I'm close to these facilities. Jerry wouldn't have thought of that. Are there health concerns? There's a lot of power going on. There's a lot of juice going in and out. Are there health concerns living near one of these facilities?
Well, I can say two things because I'm not a medical expert, but this question has come up a lot. I have scoured the American Medical Association information. I've not found a conclusive study. So if I could find one, I would have printed it and brought it with me.
That makes it a great question then, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Insert a question in search
Right.
of an answer.
The other
Will, do you have something? Hang on. Go ahead, Karen, go.
You know, what we keep hearing is that low hum, and that's...
Thank you. You've anticipated a question. What do these things sound like?
Well, and they say, you can noise cancel easier sound that's of a elevated level, right? But this low hum is really hard to stop.
That's typically coming off the transformers, and so you want to make a way to enclose noise buffering. I mean, again, doing things the right way. So we typically have laws. There are laws. We can't break those laws. Those laws prescribe the decibel limits that we need to have there, and we can negotiate lower decibel limits. We can't. Hold on. If I come in and try to rezone a property, when I come through there, these are requirements that, and we have the economic development agreement in a project we're working on right now. Noise is addressed in there, and that's something we're working on. Lighting, we talk about, is very important with folks in the community. I had an opportunity last night to chat with folks. Folks are worried about glare. We have a process. We are entering that process as we get closer to site plan layouts and design. That's where we're going to address those issues that are impacting the neighbors. And noise, lighting, all these concepts.
What is the standard decibel level outside of a data center in Virginia right now?
Oh, I mean, for a data center, so in an industrial zone property, you're usually at 70 decibels. A data center could easily attain 60, 65 for that. And then with some engineering, right, you can improve upon that. So it's a matter of
because at
siting
85
these
we
things well.
suffer ear damage. We begin the process. A long exposure to 85 plus decibels can be.
Yeah, so this is at the property line, so it's not coming over onto your property at anything higher than that. Folks, we cannot break your laws. No data center can just run roughshod over the law.
Okay,
Never seen it in my life.
Polly asks, if data centers don't want to be where they're not wanted, then why are they still looking at Waterville, White House, and Monclova Township?
So I can answer that.
Polly!
I can answer. I looked at Waterville. I looked at Monclova. I don't think those sites are very good for a data center. And that's from my analysis. It's not a matter of whether it's.
Jerry, can I say something?
It just doesn't work well.
And Matt, I don't know if you want to comment on this, but we hear that a lot. Why are data centers? I would ask what data centers are looking. I'm not aware of a single data center looking in water.
Here's the problem with that, because neighbors, has anybody been approached? Has anybody been talked to about selling property?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, because with the way these non-disclosure agreements and all that stuff, people in Wood County found out we were getting a data center and the bulldozers were already moving. So if you wait, that's my thing, Gary, is if you wait for approval, it's a little too late.
Well, so there's...
Please, come on.
Okay.
So I believe in transparency.
Will, can I just say something real quick? So there's lots of different things that go on in a marketplace, and neither Will Turner, Matt Hireman, Mark Fry, or Gary Thompson, or Jerry Anderson can control those. You might have local realtors, right, that were at a realtor conference that learned data centers will pay a lot of money for land. And they get out a map, and they go, ooh, there's a lot of land. Let me go knock on those doors. That does not mean a data center company is hiding behind the tree waiting to build a data center.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there fishing.
You might have Matt Hireman and Gary Thompson look at maps and go, man, that's next to Johns Manville. That's an industrial area. We probably should go talk to a township trustee or somebody and say, are you interested in this? And if they say yes, then we take a few more steps, and very quickly you kind of get to a public meeting or discussion. But a lot of things matter. If land's already zoned a certain way, there aren't requirements to do these things, right? Like if you put an addition on your house, does your neighbor come over and tell you where to put the toilet in the bedroom? No, you're following the law. So just because something's happening doesn't mean it's being driven by someone local, and you really should ask, what level. So you had an offer, but it wasn't in writing. That's not an offer.
No. And when you make the comment of the zoning, it wasn't very transparent to us because they were changing the zoning without us knowing.
That's wrong.
That's
That is wrong.
I
They,
mean,
they truly didn't let you know that it was changing. There's a process for doing these things the right way, and that is a developer. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off, but I'm just agreeing with you that you need to come out, you need to do it the right way, you need to engage in the community. They need to know. We believe in transparency. We show up. We're in a city council meeting. It's open to the public. I'm purchasing land, and it's right there. The city council's voting on it. They're debating it. They're having the conversation.
But even our zoning commission didn't know about it. So these things are happening. They are happening.
Mark, you have a question from what would your group, if they were here tonight, be asking our panel?
This probably more for you, and you may have written this, I don't know, but this is the Middleton Township zoning resolution Article 5. And you need to drive past our data center, then read this, or vice versa, but intended to preserve the environmental and aesthetic qualities of the corridor. The overlay district is to promote and protect the public health, safety, comfort, convenience, and general welfare by providing for consistent and coordinated treatment of the properties bordering State Route 25 and 582. I don't think that's true today.
So, as I understand it, that section's unzoned, right?
No, that, in Middleton Township,
Middleton
there's
Township's
zoning
not,
in
okay.
place, yeah.
All right. So again, that's being engaged as you are, going out and making sure that things are adhering to the zoning laws, if there's a zoning change, engaging in that. And so I'm sorry to hear that. That's not. You know my example. I'm out public. I'm in front talking to folks. I'm doing it the right way. It's very important for me. And I think you need to demand the same of everyone in the industry. I have this conversation where, my industry, they want to be able to they're moving fast, they're extremely busy, and I think that what some of the value I try to add to the situations is that I show up and I want to engage with folks. I want to make sure everyone's informed and that things are being done the right way. And I think I think it's important. I think data centers are a good thing. I believe they're very important. I think this is a big infrastructure build-out. I think they support a lot of jobs, and I think that it's very important. I think that men and women want to be able to work and do these things. And I think it's important for our country to do this. I believe in what I'm doing, but it's got to be done the right way. And the right way is going out, engaging communities, and having that conversation. And I'm sorry for the frustration that you have experienced. I want you to know that it's not reflective of everyone in the industry. I take it very seriously. It's very important. And when I show up, I want you to know, Will Turner shows up, that's a data center developer who intends well. I want to do well. I want good things to happen when I show up. And I want to have a conversation with folks so that they understand what the issues are. And we can talk and we can work together. We can resolve these issues. Because this is important for our country to build out. It's also important for the people who live around these things to make sure that they're done the right way.
Along that same line, Will, does this name ring a bell? Chris Baer, B-A-I-R? He is Chief Commercial Officer and Partner at Stream Data Center. Part of this, yes, data center development is essential even for you. Think about it, U.S. residents send and receive over 2 trillion text messages annually. 88% of households subscribe to a streaming service. Every new automobile has some form of connectivity. 89% of Americans use mobile banking. This paragraph I wanted to share with you, and I think that's where you were going with this. He wrote, he's a developer, by the way. Developers, we're certainly not off the hook either. It's our job to share more of our inner world. Let's admit it, we haven't exactly made it easy to understand our work, and it's time for us to relearn the sharing is caring message we got in grade school. For our industry, acknowledging the weight of what we do for end users also means stepping into our duties as meaningful contributors, partners, and educators to local, regional, and national communities. If you guys can make that work in the industry, that's a huge step in the right direction.
Oh, man. I mean, I appreciate him saying that. These aren't big mysteries, right? These are large buildings. They have servers in them. Those servers you use your phone, you get on ChatGPT, you look for an answer, you screen clip it, you post it on Facebook, you stream. We use data centers, multiple data centers every single day. They're ubiquitous to our life, and they're important for our future prosperity. And I feel very passionate about what we need to do, and I want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. And I appreciate that more and more. The customers we work with, they feel the same. I don't want to bring a data center into a community that's going to leave a bad mark. I don't want my reputation sullied by bringing in a customer that is not going to be helping the community out and doing things the right way.
Okay, Roger Fisher asked who or what body will make the final decision. We've talked about it, we've been around it, but I want to get to who gives the final yay or nay, and that will maybe inform all of our actions getting to them. Go, Matt.
Yeah, so that comes down to local townships and local cities are the ones that have the final say in their local zoning. So that's true in Lucas County. So in Lucas County, every single jurisdiction in Lucas County, there's 21 of them, have opted to run their own zoning process, which means at the end of the day, each of those townships and cities run that zoning process to their own unique flavor. But at the end of the day, it's either your township trustees, your city council, or your zoning board of appeals that is most likely making that final decision at the end of the day. So it will be a local decision. It is sent up for a county review. The county just has an advisory role in which it provides advice to make sure that all the rules are followed.
You can't overrule a township?
We cannot overrule a township,
Good.
and this is the experience that Karen Wynn had.
Yeah.
So when Richfield Township was putting together this, it came to the County Plan Commission. The County Plan Commission's job is to ensure that all rules were followed. In that situation, things were missed, and so because of that, there was a delay put on that, and then ultimately it was that jurisdiction pulled back their recommendation. So at the end of the day, it's a local, township, and city decision.
Thank you.
All right, I want to just make a comment. Matt, you were at all of our meetings. You were part of our trustees' planning. I would have thought that you would have stepped in and advised them. And they're just average people who don't have all of the education, may not know Ohio Revised Code to the extent that you do. I think it's your obligation. You were there, you should have been advising them.
Yeah, I agree. What the county is trying to do, the county has more resources than the individual townships. And this is something that I think we should all remember. Your township trustees, your city council members, your mayors, they are your neighbors. They are you. They are just elected, and they are there to represent the community. They have a tough job, and they don't make a lot of money to do that. I want to make that clear. They're just trying to learn and do the best they can, so I agree. And so what the job of parties like the Regional Growth Partnership, as well as Lucas County, is to come out and try and advise them. And part of the zoning process is to try and help communities develop the right protections to ensure we do that. The county tried to share and has continued to work with our townships to try and share as much information as we have. We are all as a community learning together on how to do this. And so are mistakes being made by lots of our local governments? Absolutely they are. It's all a community trying to learn together how to do this. But at the end of the day, I agree with what Mr. Turner said.
I think forums
which is we all work
like
together.
this help advise them. Guess what? We've run out of time. You've been watching Under the Spotlight. Data Centers in Our Backyard, a town hall produced by WGTE Public Media with support provided by the Lucas County Economic Development Corporation and the Regional Growth Partnership of Northwest Ohio. I thank you for watching, and our audience here at Anthony Wayne High School, thank you for attending, for participating. I want to thank each of our panelists tonight for joining us, as well as sharing information, ideas, and opinions. Please, please, please keep the conversation going. You've heard people from both sides of the data center issue talk about more discussion and open discussion. And to our elected leaders, you can certainly help make that happen. My thanks to the very talented WGTE Public Media staff. It is great to work with this crew. I want to cite specifically our Director of Content and Producer Shane Potgieter for his expert coordination of this important event. My name is Jerry Anderson. It has been my pleasure to host this town hall. Thanks to all of you for watching. Please be well, take care of each other, and let's talk again.